Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it. Coaches, the JAMODI podcast is powered by Shoot 360. The future of basketball has arrived in Dallas-Fort Worth. Shoot 360 combines the latest sports technology with the fundamentals of basketball skill development. The result is a one-of-a-kind video game-like basketball program designed to improve your shooting, dribbling, and passing. Visit shoot360dfw.com to learn more and register for your free 1-hour workout evaluation. Shoot 360, the future of basketball is here. Without realizing as coaches, and maybe there's been a push in the last decade to make sure that practice is fun. Yes. I do agree. I do believe, especially for some high school coaches and at my level where I'm at a small private school, coach, basketball is third or fourth on most of these kids' lists. I only have one or two where maybe it's at the top. And I'm okay with that because with my past and my experiences, basketball being the most important thing, dangerous. So But with that, there is this idea of, man, I want them to be excited to come to the gym. I love that idea of don't get bored if you're getting better. But then I could see coaches go too far. Go ahead.
Hold on. We're gonna have fun at practice. We're gonna compete and we're gonna do some stuff. I mean, I spent a lot of time thinking about practice as a young coach, and what I knew was we never ran sprints at the end because practice was so hard that if we were out there for an hour in February, which we did, I was big on fresh legs in February. So, but everything we did was high intensity, whether it was 2.5 in the fall or 45 minutes in late February, it was going to be intense. And we didn't need to run after practice.
Yeah.
And that's the first thing. I was going to make it like challenging mentally and physically and competitive. So you were having fun as a player. You just had to understand the first 20 minutes of practice, that was going to be monotonous to you, but you had to go back and understand that this is what makes you a better player so that you can have fun in our tricky sets to get you open. So when you do get open, you're not traveling or shuffling your feet. And then, by the way, you're a good enough shooter that we're going to get you open, man. You're going to have a field day. So you had to kind of explain the why of the monotony so that the fun part of scoring, we're going to still have fun. And by the way, we used to dive on the floor at the end of every practice for loose balls and save them and throw it to your teammate and a partner and dribble down the other end.
Shaka Smart. He did that in pregame with his guys. But keep going.
Yeah, but see, and we call it the hustle drill, right? And there were two parts. You bounce it, guy saves it out of bounds, throws it to his teammate, and everybody goes down one end, back the other. So we'd be going nuts, going crazy, intense. I'm screaming, yelling, come on, we got to play hard. And then when I had it just where I wanted it, I'd say, all right, hustle drill. So now they're diving on the floor knowing that this is the last thing we do in every practice. So like they're excited to dive on because they know that we're circling up. By the way, if you got a high school team that has one dunker, you put him at the back of the line and the final bounce pass, he's the guy that goes up and dunks it, and then we run and circle up. Yeah, circle up. So even the end of practice was scripted because we could be going crazy for 2 hours, and guys are mad at each other and they're competing. The minute I said hustle drill, it was like Pavlov's dog. It's like, practice is over. All I got to do is dive on the floor twice, actually once, and save one from going out of bounds.
Yeah.
And so, like the monotony at the beginning, the competitiveness in the middle, and then how we end it, everything is scripted so that they know, I wanted my guys to know why we were good. When I kicked them out of practice that day, they were like, we're not leaving. We're not leaving. We're going to finish this because this is what makes us good. So brainwashing.
Yeah. Well, my point too was that I think younger coaches or some just in the effort to always be having fun, you miss some of the foundational pieces, some of those mundane activities that lead to winning that they need to do. But then you nailed it. All what you have to do is explain the why. I think kids, if they understand, players, if they understand why we're doing what we're doing and that this actually does serve a purpose, they'll do it in any area of life. What do we not want to do? We don't want to waste our time. Golly, I go to the DMV and I'm sitting there for 2 hours. This is a waste of my day. Can't stand it. So, but those things that you're talking about, I mean, we do a lot of those things with shooting habits. They're not fun drills. We call them unbroken habits lead to broken records. So that even in that phrase, we're trying to help them to see, like, you're going to do this one hand and all these things because it's going to lead to success when we play. Is this a shooting game that's fun with competition? No. But I always say, like, great players master the boring. I love what you said. Don't get bored if you're getting better. That's a great nugget.
What you just talked about with the shooting habits is explaining again. It gets back to explaining the why. And you cannot coach these modern, and I'm not saying kids have changed, but I do know that it's a lot easier to teach a young man or a young lady to do something. Like, coaching is hard. Like, you're getting them to be better than they even think they can be, right? Coaching is stretching their limits. And in the old days, a lot of us used to yell and scream to get that intensity up there. And both of my boys are opposite of me, man. They are servant leaders. My son James is in the G League. Matt's back at Harvard. And I know from knowing them as people, they're not going to be yellers and screamers. Now, what we did was we yelled and screamed to try to get guys to a higher level of intensity. And I definitely would adjust that. I think you can still get on people tough without destroying their family heritage. You know what I mean? And you can still hold them accountable. But it's a lot easier to hold a young man accountable to going as hard as you need him to go to improve, as if they know, you care, which is the obvious, okay, that you really care about him. That it's not just fake. It's not transactional. You've heard transformational. We know that. Joe Ehrman. Right. Great stuff. But also, like, there's a reason we're doing this. This is not I'm not wasting my time with you. You'll get better if you do this. You got to trust me. You got to trust that I have your best interest at heart. And I'm always going to be honest with you about where you need to improve. But I thought everything out so that if a player came to me and said, Coach, why we do this drill? I had an exact answer. It didn't matter what it was. Because here's another thing, Matt, and you can't necessarily always do this. College coaches have more time in the off season. You're running around doing 18 things at school. But have you ever evaluated your previous season's practice plans with your staff and said, why are we doing this drill? This is a waste of time. We can spend our time doing something else we get more out of that, drill or another drill that kind of fits. And I was always evaluating, again, self-awareness. Like, we don't need this drill. This drill it doesn't relate to the way we play anyway.
Yeah.
I was constantly trying to shape practice like an artist. Like, and here's something I had on my desk, okay? I had a card on my desk, I swear to you. Prepare practice today like Vince Lombardi and Hubie Brown were coming. Those were my two heroes. I grew up around the corner from Vince Lombardi's family in New York.
Way.
Yeah, I did. And then Hubie Brown's always been a coaching hero, right? If you could think about your couple of heroes and coaching heroes, and if you knew they were coming to practice that day, how organized would your practice be?
Yeah.
See what I mean?
Yeah, that's a difference. Like, you're not making a mistake or just having a throwaway drill in there.
I wouldn't want Hubie Brown after practice to say, "Hey, now come on, what is this drill? What's this drill?
Yeah,
why are you doing that?" And so I always thought about practice and, like, how do we make this a perfect practice today? And how do we get the most out of the kids? And by the way, if it's February and we only have an hour and 15. Let's go now. Come on. Everything's got to be quick. We already know shell. We only need to do it 8 minutes instead of 15.
Yeah.
We can get in our transition, our Kansas drill, and we don't have to do it for 10 today. We can do it for 6, but let's do it full speed. And what I would do is I would walk out on the court in late February with the practice plan as we circled up for the practice. And I'd say, Matt, what's that say? And you'd say, Coach, that's just 45 minutes. And I would say to the guys, all right, guys, I want to be out here 45. You want to be out here 90 minutes, it's on you. We get everything done today. We're out here in 45 minutes. Brainwash.
Yeah.
See what I mean? Like
Hubie Brown used to talk about that. Have the time going. Let the players know the time, because then instead of them having to pace themselves for an unknowable amount of time, they know how long. So, man, I can go for 5 minutes. I can go for 10. I can go for 45 really hard.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I didn't necessarily have the clock on for every drill, but if I had,
but just the 45 minutes establishes that.
Exactly. And see, what I would do, like there would be times where you knew, like we had a 10-minute shell section, right? And after 7 minutes, I would say, "That's it. Good job, man. Let's rotate. Move on. Let's go. Let's get to the free throw line." And so like there were days in practice where you accomplished in 7 what we normally had set up for 10. Why waste our time? Let's move. Let's keep it going.
Yeah.
Let's end that drill on a high note, because we got accomplished what we needed. And then they saw, like, oh my God, like we had a 2-hour practice set up today and we only went for an hour and 45.
Yeah.
And some days I would actually say to my staff, if everything goes well, we're out of here early. See? So the players knew, because I work for some people, I will not mention names, where a 2-hour practice ended up 3.5.
Yeah, probably because of this. Probably.
Well, and I'll tell you, here's the other thing I'll tell you, honestly, and this again, I love talking to you about this, because I think it can help young coaches. You have to know what the end result looks like. Like you begin with the end in mind. That was a Stephen Covey phrase, a great business leader. And a lot of young coaches don't know what the end result looks like, so they never know if they're happy or not. And so they stay on something too long.
Yeah.
Whereas there's certain days I would say, this is exactly what we needed. We got it done. Let's move to the next thing. And then other days I knew, like, no, this is not good. Like I know what great looks like in my head today. And what you're doing right now is great, not great. Okay. We need to be great. So this 10-minute shell drill is going to take 20 today, because I can't let this go and let you do this without this being great. So your choice now is to give me everything you've got physically and mentally, so we can move on and coach some offense. Otherwise, we're going to stay on this. And then they would get the idea that he's serious. So those days where we had 10 minutes for shell and we only went 7, they were like, oh man, that was great. And here's what I would say. Here's another quote of mine. The harder we go, the shorter the drill is. So if you want to do this drill at 85%, that's not good enough. But if we get to near 100%, we're moving on. So you give me everything you have in this drill and we will move on to what you really like. And that's, again, self-awareness.
The beauty of that phrase too is the fact that it turns it inward. Like, what do they want? They want to move on to something, quote unquote, more fun.
Yes.
Instead of, if you don't go hard during this time, we're just going to run.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. They just don't want to run. Right. So like that motivation, that extrinsic motivation to go back to your point of screaming at them.
Yeah.
Like, Coach Bliss screamed a lot, and he got to the point where, all right, like I've seen this, I've heard this. It doesn't bother me. Coach Drew rarely did. So the moments that he did, it was like, what the crap? Okay. We straightened up a little bit. It was very rare. But I love the idea of, like, what if our players, they get to practice, one, they're excited to be there. Yeah. They go through a progression of flow that's so smooth and so fast that blink, it's over. We're done. That's a great practice. It doesn't happen all the time.
No, but a great practice is when after practice they're sitting around on the sideline, sitting on the scorer's table, drinking their Gatorade and joking and laughing with each other.
They don't want to leave, Coach. They want to stay. Yeah,
that's right. They don't want to leave. And when I see that, I'm really lucky now. After 20 years at ESPN, I'm no longer coaching practice. I'm watching practice, and I'm always watching for that. And I'll tell you 2 quick stories. I had a player. He now works in the NBA office. His name was Justin Phoenix. I don't mind sharing his name because we're good friends. I haven't gotten in touch with him in a couple months, and it just reminded me to. But I remember, like, I didn't recruit Justin Phoenix at Manhattan College. He was 6'9", really athletic, and he was early in his career. He was on a really good team. So his freshman year, he didn't play much. We went to the NCAA tournament, but I yelled at him every day for 2 years to play hard. He was one of those like kids that you looked at his face and he looked like he didn't care.
Oh, yeah.
And it drove me nuts, right?
Yeah.
Because he didn't have the intensity that I wanted. Like he didn't want it as much as I wanted it. So first day of his junior year, I'm yelling at him. And after practice, I had enough. I said, I call him over like after practice. I said, what do I got to do to get you to play harder? He goes, stop yelling at me. And I go like this. I'm going to try that.
Yeah.
I swear. I said, I'm going to try that.
Light bulb moment right there.
He was
Yeah.
all conference in that last 2 years, man. He was
Wow.
all he played in Europe for 10, and it was a great lesson. And then I had another guy on that team who, when I got to Manhattan, he had an ACL injury. So he was going to miss my whole first year as a head coach. So we got really close. He played at DeMatha High School for Coach Wooten, who
Wow.
was as soft-spoken as anybody. I mean, you think Coach Drew is soft-spoken. He's like Bob Knight compared to Coach Wooten, okay? So, but Ted and I got to be really close. Ted Ellis was his name, and we got to be really close the year he sat out. And he would always say, "Coach, I can't wait to get out there, man. I'm gonna get into some people. I can't wait to defend. I love this defense." So the next year, he's ready to play now. And I said, "Listen, you're gonna be my guy. I yell at. Okay, there may be some days of practice where I yell at you, but it's really yelling at the team." Because you and I are close now, and I know you can handle it. Like he was like my little brother, right? And he goes, "Coach, I'm cool with that. I'm cool with that." So, and I would, and there'd be some practices where I go, "Okay, Ted, I can't believe you got these guys out here," and then one day at practice, I destroyed them, and I did, right? And so after practice, we're sitting around like there's like 7 or 8 guys still out there drinking their Gatorade, and I'm sitting there on the sideline, and he comes over to me, and he leans down next to me, like sitting down on the scores table, and he's looking out. He's not staring at me. He's looking out to the court. He goes, "Damn, coach, don't you think you overdid it today?" Like his way of saying, like, "I'm okay with you yelling at me, but man, you went overboard today." So, like, but the point is, like, every player is different.
Mm.
You are really a master psychiatrist or psychologist every day, and you really have to figure out how to push individual buttons. And also, how do you push the buttons of your team so that they really buy into what you believe? And it's an art form. It really takes
that was going to be my question, is how do you get better at that? Because some people naturally just have that. I've always been amazed by coaches that can use sarcasm in a really good way with their players, to where like it never hurts, it never cuts too deep, it pulls them closer. I'm not a sarcasm guy. Like I'm a sincerity guy. Yeah. I try to be like that. How do you get better at knowing that side of coaching?
Well, first of all, you have to be you. Like you can't be, Bill Self is the best at destroying a guy. Man, we brought you here. You're one of the best 10 high school players in the country, and this is how hard you're going to play. And like he'll make you feel like 2 inches tall, but then he will bring you back like nobody's business. He will build you up. I'll never forget last year at TCU. This is cool. Okay, Jalen Wilson, right, from Denton Guyer, right, who's going to play in the NBA. I'll never forget last year, and now he's on these guys. Like he's on Jalen at practice hard, right? Christian Brown, Ochai Agbaji, Frank Mason, you name it. But I'll never forget last year at the walkthrough at TCU, he goes, "Now listen, Wani's coming off this ball screen. They're going to trap him. We're going to hit KJ on the short roll. And KJ, you just swing it to Jalen in that other corner. Jalen, you just knock down the three." Like he didn't say, "I hope you knock down the three." He just said, "We're going to swing it to Jalen. Jalen, you just knock down the three." So like he makes you feel 2 inches tall. And then he makes you feel 10,000 feet tall. And my point is, to answer your question, you got to be you. You can't be who you're not, because that doesn't work. But then I think it gets back to the sincerity of relationships. It absolutely, and if I could do anything better in my coaching career, I would say be better at developing better relationships than you already have. I had some really good ones, but I wish I could go back in time, and there's probably a handful of guys I didn't reach or don't like me because they didn't get me back then. And they would have gotten me better if I was better at relationships with them, because not everybody was as intense as I was that I coached. Justin Phoenix came around because he told me to stop yelling at him, and it worked. But I wish I could go back in time and build those relationships back up, because I think for a young coach to start out in his career, and you've been doing this a while now, I think they have to know you love them. They have to know you love them. They have to know that our relationship's going to stand the test of time, even when you're done here, at Faith and you leave, that I'm going to always be here for you. And that has to be real. It cannot be phony, and it can't be transactional.
Because they'll sniff that out real quick. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.